All right, what is up, everyone? This is Felipe with Social Buddha Education, and today I'm here with Justine. And Justine is a really good friend of mine. We've been kind of connecting and working together for a bit, exchanging different ideas and everything. So, Justine, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing in relations to coaching, in relations to the readings that you do, and other work that you do as well?
Okay. Hi, guys. Okay, so I'm Justine, and I do a few different things. I do my number one thing that I do is I do intuitive readings. I actually do them live on my Facebook, and I'll give all that information probably towards the end, right? And I do them Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Definitely hop on. It's interactive. I try to get to everybody, but basically what I'm doing is I work a lot with our spirit guides, specifically our angels, to really kind of get clarity, spiritual guidance, and anything else you may need as far as any type of guidance or support that you need, basically in love, career, life in general, etc., etc. What else do I do? I do a lot of work around, I went through a massive spiritual awakening in 2013, and I do a lot of work around people that need extra support there, as well as being empathic, which means that it's just the temperament of a spiritual person where you just feel very deeply and absorb a lot of energy very deeply. So there's all kinds of complications surrounding being empathic. So I do support, and those things kind of, I notice, really kind of work together. So people come to me for both. And then I really moving more into consciousness coaching, which is something is pretty new to me. One of my life purposes is to really have people, wake up, be more self-aware, be more conscious. And that's the word that I just love the most because it just fits so well. So basically in any area of their life as well, career, life, and dating as well. So, so I do a few different things.
A little bit, yeah.
All over the place.
No, and honestly, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're talking today. You're going to be sharing a little bit more about how that experience was for you, what some of those gold nuggets in terms of, experience, wisdom that you gained from that period that you were going through this massive spiritual change. But also, I know that you work, also in the dating matchmaking industry, which is really interesting because I work with a lot of people in regards to helping them with their social life, with their dating life, and I think in this video call, I want to talk about perhaps how to tie the consciousness coaching, even the spiritual awakening, into how it benefits your dating life, your social life, or your life in general, really, in terms of making things flow a lot more easily and without you getting so much in the way. So can you share a little bit about your experience in regards to your awakening experience? How was that? And I read an article, I think you posted on Medium, and it was really interesting to me.
Yeah, so actually, these things don't really seem super random because they're all connected in the way that everything started in 2013 when I had this awakening. So the only word that I can really kind of say that sums it all up is intense. It is not for the lighthearted, right? And what I mean by that is that I really come from obviously a strong spiritual background. So I believe God, universe, source, energy, whatever you want to call it, does not give you anything that you can't handle. So, every time I try to tell this story, I try not to scare people into it. It's funny because I get two reactions. Number one is like people are like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then the other people are like, well, how do I have my own? And it's a very interesting question, but it's not something that you just go out and do. It's something that happens to you. So I think a lot of people don't really kind of understand that. It's just, I think on a subconscious level, I was asking for it, right? I was very depressed, apathetic. I was just not aligned. My life, nothing of my life was aligned. Boyfriends, I was in an abusive relationship at the time. I was in a job I hated. I was in a location I hated. Everything was misaligned, and I think that's part of how everything kind of lined up the word I like to use is divine timing. So everything lines up intentionally of how it's supposed to. So so that happened, and it was massive and it was intense. And basically, I kind of want to go into a little bit of like why. I'm not going into so much of my background. I kind of gave it a little bit where I said, everything was like pretty misaligned, but I also went through something like a couple of traumatic experiences, which I believe triggered it at that right time.
I think one of the questions I wanted to ask is, do you believe that this can be a smoother process rather than an abrupt trauma that needs to happen?
Yeah, I love that question because I think there are different ways to look at this, because mine was super intense, and I have met other people that have had super intense. Again, it's more about hitting rock bottom. It's like nowhere else to go. Everything's falling apart. But I do believe people gradually wake up as well, right? Like over their lifetime. If they've started practicing yoga, if they've been doing more spiritual practices in general, I do believe that. And I also do believe awakening is such like a broad term where it's like, I'm awakening every day to something new, right? I work, like I said, I work in the matchmaking industry. I awaken to like, oh, men think this way. Like I'm really what it is just like a change.
Realization.
Yeah, realization, being self-aware, being more aware of different perspectives, which is why I love coaching, right? Is because sometimes we need a mirror to help us see that different perspective. So you get a bunch of epiphanies, awakenings, that kind of thing, as long as, it doesn't have to be as intense as my experience. So I do believe that, yeah.
What have been, I don't know, the top insights, realizations that you've had since this happened to you?
I actually have this on my website. I have 3, but it's really 4, and I'm planning to write a book about this because it's really the main things that I learned from this entire experience, which, by the way, my experience lasted, the Kundalini didn't leave me, that energy, until like 5 years. I'm not joking. It lasted so long. But it's, I guess, what is needed, right? I don't really have a choice with that. But, okay, so the first thing that I actually learned is the truth of the illusion, more of the illusion of the separation from each other and God, right? Like I mentioned earlier, like we are not separate from each other. And I mean, I'm a very liberal, progressive person. I do that, on a human level, right? I'm, not racist. I'm not, like that kind of stuff. But like from a very fundamental soul level, like we are not separate from anybody else. We are just not. We have differences, but we are all connected, and we're all connected to divine source, universe, God, and we are, because it's the creator, we are the creator. So that means is that it's a co-creating relationship, which means we have the ability to do whatever we want in this life, and it was intended to be that way. So that was definitely the biggest thing, because maybe I should mention this because this is pretty nuts, is that I was very much an atheist before all of this. So maybe agnostic, but I didn't really understand that concept like on a soul level. So that was like the first thing. And it's like, wow, like what is happening? Like what is happening to me? And that comes more with like the experience. These people say, well, what is spirituality? It's like your own experience. I can't give you a definition.
So what's another one? Another realization?
I believe that we are not who we think we are. And that's actually one of the other ones, right? I call this our personal truth. If we believe we are what we look like as human beings, or our personality, for example, I get in trouble with this a lot. They say, you're not your personality. And people are like, what are you saying? And I'm like, that could change, right? So anything that could really change over time is not really who we are, including, there's a lot of people that identify with their jobs, lose their job, and then all of a sudden, right, they get suicidal, and they identified with it for so long, and that's, we get confused. That's where the confusion comes in. Same thing with, a woman's about to have a baby. She's always wanted to be a mother, and then unfortunately she miscarries. Her identification was in the mother. I mean, obviously it's a very sad situation, but it's almost like she gets confused because she's like, now what? So we're confusing our human selves for our higher selves, which is really the truth of who we are. And I call this the highest self, the truth, and people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm saying, look within your soul. That is what you are, and your soul is completely love, and that's who we are. That's the essence of
But yeah, so anything else that that you think people would benefit from knowing, that might be caught up in a lot of different I don't know, just turmoil in their life right now, that it would benefit them for them to know this?
Yes, here's my fave. This is one. Emotional freedom. People are not emotionally free, and it's our own doing. So basically, this is tied to we are given a soul. Everybody has a soul, right? And we are, intuition is the channel, right? So if we feel something intuitively, it's our soul is calling us to do that, right? So it comes in feelings. So that's why it's super important when I'm like a huge feel your feelings person. Like, they're coming up to tell you something. If you're angry about something, if you're upset about something, if something doesn't feel good to move forward, a job you just got, listen to your feelings. They are so important. They are the compass. It is linked directly to your intuition. And what I've noticed is that people that actually suppress their feelings get physically sick, that kind of thing. And also it's about it's not allowing that energy to come out. Like, we're humans. We are allowed to feel. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So it's important for us to kind of express that, and people are standing in their own ways about it. Including myself. I never, I used to joke around in my early 20s that I didn't have feelings. Like, what kind of person does because
Yeah. Okay.
like so afraid to feel them. But also I think that's connected to being more empathic, right? Is that if you have a lot of feelings, they're obvious and they're intense, you're afraid to feel them. So but it's just as important, or even more important, if you're empathic, to make sure that you're expressing yourself. And now these days I'm like, if I don't express myself, I feel like I'm going to burst, and it's because my body doesn't want to hold that energy anymore. Just feelings just want to be validated. They want to be released. So just feel them, acknowledge them, and then let them go. And people don't, they're like afraid to do that. There's some blocks around vulnerability in this world, and seeing it as weak and all of that stuff, but that's all false. That's not the truth.
How can you distinguish between, what is the right action as opposed to the conditioned reaction of an emotion that you are going to be repeating the same patterns over and over, as opposed to listening to an intuitive emotion? On the other side, how do you not become controlled by your emotions to where you lose sight of what the right action, and become more reactive from conditioned action, rather than actually connecting to your intuition and to honoring your emotions? What's the difference?
Yeah, I love that, because the truth is all emotions are temporary, right? Like I just mentioned, all they want to do is be acknowledged and let go. So you can be angry for one day, not so angry the next, right? But basically, I see what you're saying, where it's like, I'm not going to lie, I'm a pretty reactive person, and that's okay. I have a lot of emotions. So do I act on emotion? Yeah, I definitely do. Okay? And sometimes I act on temporary emotions and making a permanent decision, which is not so great, right? So I think what you're trying to say is, how do I decipher between reacting on my feelings at the time versus acting on my intuition, right? Is that what you're saying? I recommend this to everyone, and it's like, to heal everything, basically, meditation. It's like, since I've been meditating since 2013, it's changed my life like so much. Again, like I said, I am, working on the reactive thing. It's by the way, all of these lessons are life lessons. I don't care how spiritual you are, you have to work on these like for the rest of your life, because guess what? We're in human bodies and we're going to make mistakes, right? And we're going to forget, is usually what I say, right? We forget who we are. But meditation, what it does is just, it's like a very
Gives you clarity, right?
Clarity, because it removes the ego temporarily, right? So a lot of people say, well, I can't meditate. First of all, meditation is a conscious breath in and out. If you know that if you're conscious that you are breathing, if you're concentrating on your breath, that means that you're not doing the monkey mind thing, right? So that means that you're meditating, right? Whether it's a minute or what, you really only need 10 to 20 minutes per day. Anyway, what that does is it removes the ego for a second. So guess what can come through? Your soul, your intuition, and the things. I have gotten so many messages just through meditation. like I was saying earlier before this call, I would just get complete, I am highly intuitive. So I just would get, downloads and a lot of information, and just, removing the ego from the situation and seeing what comes up. So, and what's the phrase I usually say? Oh, praying is asking the universe for help, and meditating is listening. So if you just listen, you can get the answers that you need. But it also helps with patience and being non-reactive and that kind of stuff too. So, yeah. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Not at all, actually. No, I'm kidding. No, absolutely. I think, I think it's great. And I want to take this, actually. I think it's in regards to all that. So you said meditation. I think it's huge. I think it gives clarity. I know I've brought this up in our other conversations in regards to, kind of connecting more to your intuition through, chatting with what you might say with God, if you will. Some people, it might be a little too far-fetched. Simply, I know probably most people have heard of, you ask yourself a question and then you wait for, an answer to be received. There is a lot, I think, to be said, and I know you're full on this, definitely, but in regards to actually connecting to your higher self by asking questions and having conversations that might clear up a lot of things that you might not be fully clear on.
Right. I agree. And there's also that's why I'm a card reader, by the way, is because sometimes, people start to even doubt that, right? But they go to somebody like me where I can intuit and channel, an entity or a spirit guide or however you want to say it, and be able to kind of bounce back to them. Because what people, when I do my cards, people are like, wow, you didn't tell me anything I didn't know. This is just all validating. Like, thank you so much. And that's what people need, right? Is because they think that they're crazy because they want to go in this crazy direction. And then these cards are validating it. And it's like, oh yeah, that is what my intuition is telling me. That's the direction. So yeah, it's different tools, but same.
And I think what we're talking about and how it applies to dating, how it applies to relationships, how it applies to money and everything is that how do you decipher what's aligned for you, and how do you decipher what's more of your ego and more of your mind and conditioned emotions and thoughts? I think that's what we're talking about. The other thing I wanted to mention is that besides meditation and besides really getting in touch with your intuition and figuring out what it actually is saying as opposed to doubting it, is also healing, I think, in regards to the emotional stuff. Many times where, you can begin to see whatever things trigger you are probably things that have triggered you for a long time, and things that probably have some kind of, a source from your childhood or a source when you were younger, whatever kind of trauma you've gone through. And I think that also helps to kind of live a more aligned life where you're not repeating all patterns and kind of deciphering between what's more intuitive as opposed to just responsive emotions.
No, I agree 100%. Actually, my other thing was soul alignment. So that's funny how you just went into that. It's just basically the more you listen to your intuition, the more you can be aligned. And that's how we actually manifest the things that we want. Is that if we're co-creating with the universe, we're on the same page, all we have to do is ask for what we want and be extremely clear about it. Because here's the funny thing. I love just saying as humans, we're really stupid. What I mean by that is that we have all the tools. We have them all. We're the only ones standing in our way. And basically what I mean by that is the universe wants you to achieve your goals. The universe wants you to do your passions, your purposes. They want you to be happy in positive emotions and things like that. It's that we have to decide that we want it and communicate that out, right? But here's the other thing too I want to add about intuition. If you can't decipher what's intuition and what's fear, intuition always comes up in a positive way. Fear is just the ego trying to keep you down.
So going back into the awakening, what would you say are the top signs that you are going through a spiritual awakening so that you don't freak out too much?
I was going to say, if you're questioning your sanity every day, that's the number one.
Okay, cool.
You know how I said in meditation, you remove the ego very temporarily? This was pretty permanent. And what I mean by that is that the ego was stripped from me overnight. So that meant I was just like so open and compassionate and so sensitive that like I couldn't even like live in this world. I can't explain it to you, because here's the other thing. The ego does try to keep you safe, right? And tries to keep you in your comfort zone, all that stuff. We actually need it to be here on this planet. We can't survive without it. We can't build businesses without it. We can't, we need some type of stability. Like we need it to be here. So it was like completely stripped from me. So like, I just like felt like I couldn't even like go outside without crying over the flowers. Like I was like, this is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I swear. And my sister's like, are you all right? I'm like, no, I'm not. So it's like a temporary, permanent, stripping of the ego. But really one of the most important things I want to say though too is that people's gifts get blown open basically during awakenings, which is what happened to me, which is what I think is the number one thing that makes people think that they're crazy, is because so you don't have these awakenings unless your soul is ready to, right? So that means that you're also ready to, come face to face with your gifts. My intuitive gifts are an inner knowing and an inner feeling. They're very, very strong. This is how I communicate with angels. Because I actually communicate with them by feeling what they're trying to say. So I get things in the terms of feelings, and then just knowing like random pieces of information. I've always gotten someone's like, how do you know that? And I would just say, I just know. I can't explain it. So basically, they get blown open basically, and you really don't know how to deal with it. For me, some of the clairvoyance came out. I had mediumship experience within that year. My friend's brother came to me, like imagine like being completely like, minding your own business, and then all of this stuff just like comes to you. So things like that make people think that they're crazy. You have to trust that it's not just you. You're not in this by yourself at all. And I think that's why the world is so lonely. Like a lot of people are very lonely at all times because they're not really seeing the bigger picture. You're never alone, maybe physically, but you have to trust that there is a divine presence taking care of you. In
regards to what you went through and everything, what would you do differently, or what would you recommend anyone that's going through that, whether it's, maybe a smaller version of it or even just as abrupt and intense?
I would say my number one thing would be to surround yourself with people that are going through the same thing, because you already feel crazy from all the things that I mentioned.
Is there an Awakening Anonymous group that you can recommend?
Well, that's actually how
AA meetings. Yeah, that's like a thing now. Let's start it right now.
Well, that's why I do what I do, right? Like I always mention awakening support. If you think you're crazy, talk to me. Like, because I am the least non-judgmental.
If someone wanted to get in touch with you with to do some kind of a card reading, coaching, and that sort of thing, where would they find you? And
okay, so on Facebook, it's just my name, Justine Luzzi. Instagram, Justine_Luzzi_intuitive. And then my website is my name as well, JustineLuzzi.com.
Awesome. And we'll put those links on the bottom of this video and wherever we post this video at. I think the only other thing I wanted to mention wanted to wrap up with, is that many times, I think if people are watching this video and they're going all the way through the end, I think it's people that are actually interested in the awakening, but also for those that are, wanting to know how does this benefit, let's say, my financial life or my love life. How do you see this influencing? I think we've touched on a few different things, that in terms of alignment, in terms of honoring your emotions and different things, but from a perspective of, all right, so I'm just living my day-to-day, how does this actually benefit and create a better life for me?
Consciousness. And what I mean by that is consciousness is another word for saying aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no, but we'll use that for now. But basically what I actually tell my coaching clients is that being aware is literally half the battle. As long as you can, it's basically saying, as long as you can see the problem, you can heal the problem. And that's where it comes in. It's because some people don't even get to that level. They don't understand that anything is wrong, that they have a very wounded relationship with money or a wounded relationship with love. I see it all the time. So they're not really getting even to that first step. So if what this has taught me, if anything, if I can sum it up, is that consciousness is so important, and it could really help you with your relationship with money, other people, love, like that kind of thing. And I mean, that's everything, right? What else is left? That's life. So it could really help you in all different areas for sure. You know, healing is so not linear. You know, there's different ways that people can do it. Some things work for other people and some things don't. But I mean, you can't get to the healing part unless you have the self-awareness part, so the consciousness part. So that's where it comes in handy.
So thanks so much for being on the interview, and yeah, we'll chat with you soon. And again, if you guys want to get in touch with Justine, you'll see the links at the bottom of this video, and we'll see you guys soon.